so I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3. Okay. Good evening, everyone, to the Finance Committee meeting for January 12th, 2021. So the first item on the agenda is called to order, and we have quorum. So next in our agenda is the approval of the draft minutes from the December 8th Finance Committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Any comments, question? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next, we move to the public appearances for non-agenda item. Do we have anyone, Misty, do you know?
There's nobody online and nobody in the chambers.
Okay, thank you. So next we move to the Finance Director report. So we have two topics. So the first one is COVID-19 Finance Impact Report.
Yeah, so there's two documents in the packet as part of my report. So the COVID report, some things to point out for you. We have had an increase in the usage of the emergency paid sick leave, and we'll talk about that again at towards the end of the agenda. All of the costs that the city incurred for COVID were reimbursed through the CARES funding that we received, so that was good news. We ended up not applying to FEMA because we did have all of our costs covered by CARES. The other good news on the CARES front is we took the extra effort to submit all of our eligible expenses, not just the ones to get up to our allocation amount. And because we did that, the state reallocated all of the unused money to all of the municipalities. So we got an extra $50,000 from that reallocation. So our total CARES funding that we got for the routes to recovery was about $525,000. And again, that between that and the other couple aids we got, we were able to cover our full cost as a result of COVID. We do have some increase in the delinquent utilities that ended up going on the tax roll. It was about 46% higher than the year before, but things are getting paid. I would say for property tax collection through the end of the year, we were collecting about the same amount as we did in other years. So my gut is that there is relatively limited impact of COVID on our property tax collections. And I was in a meeting with the league today with other administrators across the state, and it seems like everybody is experiencing about the same collections from a tax perspective. So things there seem to be going okay. A Biz Boost loans. So we did end up finalizing all of that. A total of 5 loans were issued for $47,500. Was a good program to be able to offer. And then we did get one new aid program through the Department of Justice, specifically for the police department for some COVID costs. The nice thing about that one is it starts in December of 2020 and goes into 2021. So we actually, because we had the routes to recovery costs, we spent all of that money first, and we pushed that new grant to 2020 to help pay for some of the additional, especially like PPE and such, that we'll continue to need in 2021. So that was a nice award too, it was $30,000. So are there any questions on that report before I move to the next one?
Oh, Gabriela.
I just wanted to say thank you for submitting the full costs, because that's fantastic that we were able to get that extra funding. And I'm curious, let me know if you're going to touch us on the administrator report, but if you know anything about potential vaccines for city employees, especially the first responders, or are you going to cover that at council?
And I wasn't planning to. I can tell you I had a meeting today, and it sounds like the first responders, EMS is currently getting vaccinated. Police department and fire department are eligible under state guidelines starting next week. And then they mentioned in that same league conference call today that there will be guidelines, proposed guidelines coming out today for public comment that should address where the rest of city staff falls in the prioritization. But I haven't seen that document yet. We do, however, have our emergency management director here, so maybe he has a better take on that.
That report that I had sent you out for the COVID update, on the last page has some links that'll take you to frequently asked questions, and also some of the prioritization that went into the selection of vaccine.
Great, thank you.
So, Misty, regarding you mentioned that the utility are, delinquency. So who is paying for that delinquency fees? If we are not able to collect.
Yep. So we're not able to collect interest and penalty at
Okay.
this PSC required that we.
Okay.
So the utilities really are absorbing that difference right now.
Okay.
And the utilities are in a healthy position, so we should be able to weather that storm in the short run. The thing we have to our advantage, though, is that delinquent utilities are allowed to be placed on the tax bill as a special charge. And so we were able to continue to do that process. That's the amount that increased, that 46%. So we had more people putting their delinquent utilities on the tax roll in order for us to get paid for those.
I have a question, just a follow-up, is how long does it stay on the tax rolls until it's paid?
Yep, and so how the payments are applied to the bill, so the special charges and special assessments in the kind of that bottom right corner are paid first when somebody makes a payment. After that, then it goes to the rest of the tax bill. So in theory, as soon as they make a payment, that's paid. And then a tax bill sits out there for 7 years and the county buys that bad debt from us, and then the county can pursue foreclosure, sales, and all of the collection efforts that they do.
But that's 7 years?
I don't know what the exact process is on the county side. I believe it takes a couple of years before they even continue down that path, but I can get some more information on what their collection process is.
Sure, thank you.
And I have another question, Misty, looking forward if this, we know that COVID will continue for a couple of more months. So how we are going to absorb future expenses related to COVID?
So a lot of the costs were one-time things that the city was able to use routes to recovery funding for. So a lot of the laptops, the telework stuff, that was all paid for through there. The ongoing costs, so the city has continued our Zoom subscription, obviously, as we're on a meeting with Zoom. That was included in the budget for 2021 and adopted by council. So that funding is there. And then later we'll talk about a possible extension of the emergency paid sick leave. Our experience with that was all of it was reimbursed to us from CARES funding. The actual only budget impact, though, is when we have to backfill a shift. So, for example, if I was out on emergency paid sick leave, I'm still paid my same salary regardless. There's not actually a budget impact to the city as a result of that. So as long as we're able to address the different revenues that are coming in shorter, which we've talked about in past meetings, that's more of the concern from COVID, but the expense side, I think, is under control.
Any other question for Misty in this topic? Okay. Next, we move to the 30% audit report for the TID number 10.
So TID 10 is the one on North Fish Hatchery Road that's paying for the big chunk of the Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction and then some of those development incentives that have gone through council. Under TID law, whenever you spend 30% of the amount you're allowed to spend, you have to get an audit. And so that was triggered as of the end of 2019. The report is coming to you now. It is stale at this point. It's old. We did make the deadline that had to be done before the end of 2020. So we made that, but it is a little old at this point. Some good things to note on that is it's a relatively new TID, and this report also only looks backwards. It doesn't look forward. So looking back, we have about 1.2 million that we still need to recover from future increment over the life of the TID. Again, it being new, if everything stopped now, that would not be a concern. The future financials of the TID, those will address when the annual reports come out. That's usually in about May or June. That has to go to the Joint Review Board and that stuff. So this report is just from 12/31 and back. Any questions on that? And then I have other report stuff.
I have one question there. I was confused in page 27. Is it page 13 or 15? But it's there are too many page number there. The 27.
Yep.
When they talk about, we have a capital expenditure. I understand from which one are those, But then they talk about, what is it, $31 million. These are developer payments and the interest and fiscal charge 15,000, and there is another one 25,000. So this is our future. What are the future payment that we need to make to, if we attract that increment, something like that?
Yeah, Scott, is it okay if I share my screen to show that report?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is, do you guys see the page from the project plan?
Yes.
Is that audit up? So this report, assuming this is what you were thinking about, Julia.
Yeah.
So this last column here, this is the project plan estimate. So when we created and amended the TID, this is how we thought we were going to spend the money from the TID and what amount we were going to collect from the TID. So the 23 million was the capital amount you mentioned. This 31 million, this would be the developer incentives. At this point, we've issued two, one for the mixed use project on the old juice plant, and then one for the senior housing across the street, the Highline building. So as of now, those were the only two that have been issued or been agreed to. But in the project plan, we assumed that there would possibly be more deals coming through to incentivize more. So this 31 million is not just those two. That's all of the incentives we expect to, or wanted to have capacity to award. Then the $15 million, this is the interest on those development incentives. We do pay interest on those, as well as the interest on the debt that the TID issued in order to pay for Fish Hatchery Road. And then the 25 million is the debt. I think all of that, I'm pretty sure all of that is for the Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction, is what we plan to borrow for.
Okay. Any other question for Misty?
Just one question. Baker Tilly, very reputable, credible accounting firm. Do we put that out for bid, or is that do we work as a contract with Baker Tilly?
Yeah.
Situations like this.
So the TID audits are part of our external audit contract. So we do go out to bid for external audit contract. We did this last time, it was a 3-year bid with an optional 2-year extension, which we did exercise. And I do plan to bring forward in the near future another 2-year extension to keep Baker Tilly because they are also the auditors for the city of Madison and the town of Madison. So as we're doing that conversion or the annexation, it would be really helpful to have all of us with the same auditors. So I will be bringing forward that. Then after that extension, we would go back out and do an RFP again. Baker Tilly is definitely a reputable firm. They're one of the leaders in the state for municipal audits. And we have been with them for a long time, but we still continue to do the RFPs to make sure our price is where it should be.
Okay, well, very good. I would agree again. I just wanted to make certain of the process. Thank you.
Okay, so anything else, Misty?
Couple other things. So tax payments are going well. I think mentioned earlier, so we're about the same level of collections as what we were last year. A big change, though, that I have mentioned at previous reports is that in-person payments need to have an appointment. So people can schedule an appointment online through the city's website, or they can call the office with option number 6 to get that appointment scheduled. The purpose of that was to spread people out so that we could make sure that we complied with the 10 people in a room order and to reduce wait times to hopefully reduce the exposure to both our staff, but then also the taxpayers. And so overall, I think that process is going well. And we've gotten a lot of compliments or positive feedback on having that appointment available. And then it's set up in the community center instead of in the main city hall to try to keep that separate from the rest of the staff too. Since we last met, the debt closing also happened. So closing happened without a problem, and then we refunded that other debt last week. That all went really well. And then as of the end of the year, that employee in my department has retired and we hired the new person. So we are transitioning there, and that's going very well as well. Obviously a very busy time for everybody, but it's a great team and they're really pulling together and getting things done. That is it.
Okay. Thank you, Misty. Next, we move to the review of the bills, and then we are going to go to the detailed review of all checks for $10,000 and above, dated December 1st to 31st, 2020, totaling $3,652,483 $149.86. Any questions? No? Okay, so next we move to the detailed review of all check issued, check number 121-466-121572, dated December 1st to December 31st, 2020, totaling $3,814,963.22. Any question there? No? Okay. So next we move to the detail of ACH payment for $10,000 and above, dated December 1st to December 31st, 2020, totaling $202,182.12. Any question there? No? Okay. And next we move to the detailed review of all ACH payment dated December 1st to December 31st, 2020, totaling $205,068.79. Any questions? No? Okay. So now we move to the action item, and the first thing I need a motion to approve resolution R-217-20, a resolution authorizing the payment to Verizon Wireless for monthly service charges for 2021.
I move to approve.
Okay, Misty?
So this is an annual pre-approval in order to pay for the cell phone bills. This includes cell phones at police and fire, so it's obviously an important contract that we have, and we get our pricing off of state contract.
So, okay, any question? Okay, we are gonna have several of these one now, okay?
I guess I just,
Gabriela.
had the prices gone up since previous years, or is it pretty consistent year to year?
You know what, I'm not sure. I can find out and get back to you.
All of in favor of this resolution R-217-20, say aye.
Aye.
Nays, the motion carried. Next, I am looking for a motion to approve resolution R-218-20, and a resolution authorizing payment to Wisconsin Independent Network for monthly service charges for 2021.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Misty?
This is another one of those annual pre-approvals. The bulk of this cost is actually paid by MPSIS, which is the consortium of all of police departments in our area. So the bulk of it is actually billed to that consortium. But because we're kind of the fiscal agent for this contract, it follows our purchasing policy and is coming to you. And what this is the fiber and internet services.
So the city portion is like what is like a $5,700?
Yep. But the MPSIS portion, which would be all the
Yeah.
police departments that we work with, is the $59,000. So that's why you guys are seeing it.
Yeah. Any other question, Gabriela?
Is there a reason why we're the lead, like where we have to look at the whole amount, or does each of the constituent departments have to look at the full amount?
So the MPSIS consortium is split with power, where the city of Fitchburg, we have the employees, and then so we do a lot of the contracts that the employees take care of. Sun Prairie is actually the real fiscal agent and pays a lot of the bills for the thing. But since this is on a contract with the city of Fitchburg, we take this one and then bill it to Sun Prairie to pay on behalf of MPSIS. That is a way to just try to divvy up some of the responsibilities between the two bigger cities in the consortium.
And then this is the same consortium that we share that data analyst
Yes.
between? Okay. So it's Sun Prairie.
Sun Prairie, Monona, Verona, Middleton, and us, I believe.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other question? All those in favor of resolution R-218, say aye.
Aye.
Nays, the motion carries. Next, I am looking for a motion to approve resolution R-222-20, ESRA Enterprise License Agreement Renewal.
I move to approve.
So this one is another annual payment, pre-approval.
Yep, so this is for our GIS system, and if we don't have the software, it has a pretty significant impact on our operations across the city.
So this one is a contract is for 3 years, isn't it? So we are approving for a 3-year contract or,
It's for the whole 3 years. Yep.
okay. Any question? Gabriela?
I was wondering if possibly the chief could talk about what makes this software unique, because I understand that it's something that we don't really have any other analogs or other options, but, and I'm just curious if, you know, this one's geared specifically towards municipality needs, or I wonder if you could speak to that.
As far as the GIS?
Yeah, the ESRI, ESRI.
Yeah, so the GIS is mostly mapping, and there's a number of other different things that are tied into it, but that's through engineering, not the fire department.
Okay.
So it is one of the leaders in the industry, I would say, and not just for governments. It's across all kind of users, but it is one of the bigger ones and very helpful for our operations to keep us efficient.
It's one of those specialized fields where there aren't that many players in it. Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
If there's one thing that I can add, just about every department uses it. I mean, there are implications for fire response based on the mapping that, let's say, Dakota does in engineering.
Okay, all those in favor of resolution R-222020 say aye.
Aye.
Nays. Okay, the motion carries. Next, I am looking for a motion to approve resolution R-04-21, authorization to purchase extrication equipment to fire squad. This is a direct referral.
Motion to approve.
Okay, so who's gonna talk, the chief?
Yeah, so we're okay with the approval, not a second, or do we second that one?
We don't need seconds here.
Okay, sorry, I'm new to that game. So I'm bringing to you a direct referral. I understand that this is not our preferred method, but we did miss out on a meeting at the end of December, and we are trying to take advantage of 2020 pricing. Throughout 2020, we had gone through a number of different vendors to try to figure out what was going to work best for us. On the squad, we used to have an onboard unit that was piped directly into the squad. And now that the squad is being redone, we had that piping taken off. And the benefit behind that is the fact that the extrication tool is not tethered to the vehicle. If you have a hydraulic hose connected to the vehicle, usually the longest you can run from the vehicle is about 100 feet. But with this cordless and these electric tools, these hydraulics, we are able to operate that equipment indoors. We're able to operate it further away from the vehicle, and we don't have the onboard systems that we had with the old squad. So there's limited maintenance that's associated with it. We were fortunate to come up with some really good pricing, and that's why we wanted to take advantage of this and not lose out on an opportunity. That's why it's before you today as a direct referral. And the extrication set that we are looking at going with is the Homatro Pentheon, and it is it's the one that costs the least, but was the best received through our user tests.
Okay, because I like all of that related to fire. You know that what is the extrication equipment does, for people that they are listening to us.
So those that are listening, the extrication equipment is designed to be able to pry things like vehicles and machinery away from people who are trapped inside those vehicles or machinery. The reason why it's important to stay on top of this is because technology and things like vehicles is getting to the point where steels are becoming extremely hard and difficult to pry. So one thing that we went with this concept was to purchase one more cutter. The cutter uses a lot of force. It's a high pressure tool, but it allows us to shear that metal away from people that we typically wouldn't be able to do with the tools that we had available to us 10 years ago.
And this one was in the CIP plan, was approved, and is in the budget. So everything is coming along. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if you recall, one thing that Misty wanted to do is put everything, I'm going to try to quote you, Misty, so correct me if I'm wrong. what makes a squad a squad? And the fact of the matter is this extrication equipment was needed on the squad. If we would have placed an onboard unit, it would have been part of the cost of the squad. So we're trying to keep those costs together. Earlier, or actually through the budgeting process last year, I had asked for $50,000, but as it turns out, we didn't need it because we got some decent pricing.
Okay. Any other question? Thank you, Chief. All those in favor of resolution R-04-21, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays, the motion carried.
And Julia, I'm not exactly sure that on Chicago Fire they have the Halmatro. They might have a different brand.
I need to check that.
All right, thank you, everyone.
So next, I am looking for resolution R-11-21, amending the 2020 capital project fund budget for Lacey and NN intersection. This is another direct referral.
I move to approve.
Okay, Misty, what is this one?
So this is about the Lacey and MM intersection. The construction bid was awarded by council late last year, and the project has been moving forward. As we go through it, though, we realized there was a problem with the funding source calculation. It didn't factor in the fact that the developer had put in some other construction items between the time this project was in the CIP and the time that the construction bid was let. So the construction bid was awarded. We've actually made payment on it as well. This is simply a budget amendment to true up those funding sources. Included in the packet is a memo from Bill that shows what it was originally based on the old information, what it is now based on the new information, and what that difference is. The net result is the developer is paying about $89,000 less than we originally thought. Dane County is paying about $49,000 more, and then the city is paying about $24,000 more. So the developer and the county piece, we are just recording. We do expect that the county has the funding to pay for their portion. The city piece, however, is in front of you to transfer money out of the streets resurfacing project that was available and move it into this project in order to meet our portion of it, basically Streets for Streets, CIP. It does need a 2/3 vote because we're adjusting revenues and expenses. And it was, essentially an oversight and needs to be corrected now. And it was a direct referral because it's a 2020 budget item that really should have been adopted in 2020. So we're trying to get it at least as close to 2020 as we can.
So, so practically it's gonna be transfer money from, in the public works, from one bucket to another one, from the street resurfacing to.
Exactly. So from the more generic streets resurfacing project to this specific street improvement project.
So that one is from the big bucket, like the $1 million bucket? Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
Any question, Gabriela?
Randy, you can go ahead. I've been talking a lot.
Oh, I didn't see Randy, do you?
Oh, I don't know. No, Gabrielle, you were up first. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm just curious, is this kind of just one of those mistakes that happens every once in a while, or is it kind of a sign of like staff being overworked? Like, is there a way for us to prevent this type of thing from happening in the future? And I know you might not know that exact answer to that, but I'm just curious if I should read anything into this.
Yeah. I would say anecdotally, your engineering staff is very overwhelmed at this point. They had a long-term vacancy that didn't help anything. There's a lot of really big construction projects happening right now. So I don't think I'm out of turn to say that the engineering department is feeling very, very overwhelmed.
And is that,
sorry.
I mean, now that we've brought on a transportation engineer again, do we expect that the workload is going to go back to, obviously, city workers are always overworked to a certain extent, but back to kind of a normal baseline, or?
I would hope so. I met with the new engineer. I think he'll be a great fit and we'll be able to really hit the ground running, which is helpful. But there's still a lot of really big projects that were approved in the CIP and that are moving forward kind of all at the same time. And that's difficult for staff to manage. And I wouldn't say that that's necessarily what caused this error, but in answer to your question.
Got it. Thank you.
Randy, do you have a question?
Yeah, a couple, just to follow up with Alder Gerhardt. Just coming from an engineering background in the private sector, it's not unusual for expenses such as this to come forward at a later date. But I think as we alders, it's our responsibility to ask those questions. So we may and may not see an improvement just because engineering is always overworked. But my question to you, Misty, is if the county portion, do they always come through? Do they make the adjustment just like we do? What happens if they do not? Are we held liable as a city?
So we have a contract with them too, an intergovernmental agreement. So I believe that's been worked out. I don't know the specifics as far as if they had already over allocated and it was fine, or if they moved money between projects. That I'm not sure, and I can find out for you guys. But generally the county has the same similar processes to us, where if something goes over and they're under contract for it, or it's a project that they really believe in, they will find ways to shift things around.
Okay. All right.
Any other question? Okay, so all those in favor of approving resolution R-11-21, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays, the motion carried. Next, I am looking for a motion to approve resolution R-19-21. It's a resolution to approve a contract with Dane County to accept the 2021 Neighborhood Navigator funding. This is a direct referral too.
Motion to approve.
Okay, so Misty or Wade, I don't know who is gonna talk.
Actually have Wade talk about it.
Okay.
Everyone, can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, so basically, this is the third year of our Navigator program. Two women that live in the North of Chatcher Road neighborhood, Carmen and Elizabeth, have been doing great work. Basically, we get $21,000-ish from the county to support those positions. They are part-time, but basically their role is to connect residents with resources in our three H&I neighborhoods, our priority neighborhoods. So this would just be a contract to accept that funding again in 2021.
yeah, this is a good thing. We are receiving money.
Correct. And with very little strings attached too, so.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
Okay.
Why the proposed modification for number 2? Am I on the right resolution? Yes.
I think that's the next resolution, Randy.
That's the next one. Okay, so we're moving to H&I here.
yeah, so that one is, yeah.
All right, I'll save that for the next resolution.
Any other question? So all those in favor of resolution R-19-21, say aye.
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 Aye, nays, the motion carried. Next, I need a motion to approve resolution R-20-21, a resolution to approve modification to the 2021 Healthy Neighborhood Grant Program. This is a direct referral too.
I move to approve.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, and I did include a memo in the packet, so hopefully folks have had a chance to look at that. But essentially, this is a recommendation from the H&I committee. They met in December and proposed these changes to the 2021 H&I grant program. If you do remember, last year was the first year that the council is making award decisions. So again, you'll see those recommendations come in probably March or April. But prior to me opening the application period, which I'll do next week, we have traditionally brought changes before the council as well. Again, this is a new grant program. We're about 3 or 4 years in. So, my goal in managing the program is to constantly improve it every year. I think we're getting towards some really solid footing. So with that in mind, the committee is proposing 2 changes this year, or 2 modifications. The first being to increase the maximum award from $10,000 to $15,000. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and I can certainly get into that if folks want me to. So that's change number 1. Change number 2 would be to essentially refine the program categories to kind of tailor them to better suit what we're seeing in terms of neighborhood needs, as well as applications that have come in the past 3 or 4 years. So traditionally, the grant program categories have been very kind of generalized, ambiguous. So this modification is proposing to, again, kind of make those categories a bit more specific. And quickly, those categories are youth mentoring, youth education, adult education and workforce development, food security, and then finally kind of a catch-all of neighborhood/community building and engagement. So those would be the proposed new grant program categories. So basically the idea is if folks want to apply, their application would have to fit under one of those program categories. So those are, again, two proposed changes. And I can certainly take any questions the committee might have.
Randy, do you have a question?
Yeah, just to follow up from what I tried to state earlier, under the proposed modification number 2, I mean, you're narrowing it in from youth to youth mentoring and education, and senior goes away and you're putting it under neighborhood. I'm just concerned about it. You seem to be narrowing the scope of what you're after. You mentioned it was ambiguous, but
Yeah.
doesn't that leave it open for more opportunities? It seems as if you're narrowing it to those that can apply for a grant. I don't know. I'm just concerned.
Yeah, I think my sentence there that talks about impactful and efficient allocation of city resources, I think that's really what it's about. I mean, these new categories are the categories that are basically reflected in the past 3 years of applications that we've seen and funded, as well as what we're hearing from neighborhood residents. So, you know, I think the new categories are specific enough to kind of maybe better direct our resources, but still broad enough to catch something that, you know, may not be obviously apparent under these categories. So, as staff who's managed this program, again, the past 3 years, I feel really good about these new proposed categories.
Okay, I just don't want to miss it. Be certain that we don't miss any opportunities out there because of being.
Yeah, understood. And again, I think the letter E, kind of the community building engagement, really is kind of designed as a catch-all. So, you know, that maybe that's the one where it's a little bit more ambiguous and we can make sure we catch everything we want to catch. So.
And also because, you know, I have been involved with the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative for a long time. So the other thing is we want to align the needs in each neighborhood with the services that we can provide. And this is what, you know, we see that this is the category that they are aligned with the needs in each neighborhood where we need to work for, you know, and this is what we have seen in the last, 2-3 years from the grant proposal. They are coming around all of these categories, so.
Okay.
Gabriela.
Yeah, I come from I currently work in nonprofits, and one of the things I like about this specificity is that I think it's also really good for the grant writers in the nonprofit because they're not applying for a grant that they're unlikely to get because of this additional specificity. Like, for example, arts and culture, it's a nice category, but unless it has a really direct connection to community building, it sounds like something we would never fund. So it's also kind to the grant writers out there that are gonna waste their time. And I also really appreciate the ability to extend a higher grant amount, especially for, you know, those really high impactful grants that need some additional money to actually have an impact on the community. I think having that flexibility is good for the grant committee. So I think this is a step in the right direction.
Randy?
As far as the back up to the dollar amounts, the actual approval of the application for dollars, how is that handled? What's the administration of it? It's $10,000 now. It's going to $15,000. I mean, what's the history? What is everything?
Yeah, there is a history.
If a person asked for $10,000, do they automatically get $10,000 if they're approved?
Yeah, Julia, feel free to chime in. So again, this grant program is, I would say, 4 years old, I believe. I've managed it for about 3 of those years. The initial allocation was, the first year there was no maximum award. There was, I believe, a $50,000 allocation. So obviously that led to a lot of confusion amongst applicants as well as decision makers in terms of awarding grants. So the second year there was a $10,000 max. You know, I think the idea was we had 50 grand, that $10,000 fit nicely into, you know, 5 separate awards. You know, I think it was also kind of a smaller micro amount. You know, the city was new to a grant program, so I think we wanted to start small. You again, in my history of managing the program, I've encouraged the committee to consider maximum awards for a couple reasons. The first being, I think, to Gabriella's point, the higher the award, the more benefit to the city and the more capacity that project has. So I think that's one thing to think about. The other thing to think about is basically a staff capacity issue. Managing the grant program is one of the many hats I wear at the city, and I gladly wear it. But I have to put the same amount of work into managing a $2,500 award, which we made this year, as I do managing a $10,000 award. So that's I guess another thing to think about. And then I think kind of the final point here is, as the allocation from the city has gone up slowly every year. So again, we started with 50,000. Now we're averaging close to 60,000 a year. Again, at some level, it is a staff capacity issue. If we do keep increasing the amount of money to the grant program, but keep that $10,000 cap, I will be asked to manage more awards, and that's fine. But there will be a limit where I just can't manage them all. So I think for those three reasons, again, the idea of more capacity for the organization, staff capacity, and then just ramping up. So I guess the third reason I didn't maybe touch on is, if you think about the ratio of award number to total allocation. So again, the first couple of years we had 50 grand with $10,000 awards. That averaged about 4 to 5 awards. As we continue to ramp up the program in terms of funding, $60,000 to $70,000 a year with a $15,000 max would generally equate to that 4 to 5 awards per year. So I think we're kind of staying consistent with the program as the money increases. And then I guess just to kind of wrap it up, generally speaking, we have made maximum awards. That's kind of been a general policy of the committee. With that, Julia, feel free to chime in.
No, I agree with what you say. And sometimes, like the last year, we can be flexible. Sometimes, there are more good proposal coming, and we decided, okay, we would like to fund this, but some people apply for $10,000. We have the flexibility to reduce I don't know, $1,000 or $2,000 for each and fund another one. We always have that flexibility. We are not like rigid that, if a good proposal come, because we have the 15,000, or we can, we have the flexibility to fund more in case that they are good proposal, and and reduce the amount. We have done it in the past.
And this year will be a good example of that. If this change does get approved, we will be making at least one award of less than $15,000. That's just the way the math will shake out. But to Julia's point, we do have flexibility in divvying up that pot the way the committee sees fit. I think the idea here is, if we see some really, really great projects that need that 15,000, we have the capacity to do that.
Yes, Randy?
Once the application is approved, so there is some work after the approval. Are there targets, and you measure those targets?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm basically, so I open up the application period. I collect the applications. I work with the committee to make recommendations on awards. Those awards then come to the council for final approval. Once that approval is made, I work with the applicants to make sure they understand, or the awardees, to make sure they understand program requirements, reporting. I do a mid-year check-in to see how their progress is going. So basically, it's administrative work. It's managing grant projects and external third parties. So yeah, there is definitely work involved after the award.
And we usually give the money after they complete the project. You know what I mean? We don't do it in advance.
Right. So they have about a year to complete the project. They report back. They give me the required reporting. If the reporting matches what they said they were going to do, if they have all their financials in order. We worked with finance to cut a check for the award.
Okay, any other question? Good questions. Okay, so all those in favor of resolution R-20-21, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays, the motion carries. Thank you, Wade.
Thank you.
Next, I look for a motion. Wait, are you gonna be in council?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay.
Yep.
Next, I am looking for a resolution to, for a motion to approve resolution R-31-21, adopting the amendment emergency sick leave and family leave policy for general employees and emergency responders. This is a direct referral.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Misty.
Yes. So part of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act last year in 2020 was it required most employers, and the city was included, to offer that emergency paid sick leave. So we offered the stuff that was required, and then we also created a program for emergency responders that were otherwise exempt from the required paid sick leave, and created a separate emergency responder paid sick leave policy. Both of those expired as of the end of 2020. Right now, the legislation that's coming from the federal level no longer requires that aid be provided, but it allows it to be provided through the end of the first quarter, with the tax incentives for the private company side. What we're bringing forward to you is an extension through February 12th of 2021. Ultimately, if there's no change in legislation that would go back to requiring us to provide it, we would then come back to you on the February 9th meeting and ask to extend it again through the first quarter. The reason why we didn't want to just do that now, though, is there's a changing of the guard at the federal level, and there's already been some indication that they may do something that would require the extension of the FFCRA leave. And often what happens, and what did happen this last time, is that if you have something on the books and then they come back and require you to do it, you have to then do both programs. You can't just replace them. So the thought of this timing is that it goes through February 12th, which is the Friday after a council meeting, and that it would be the first council meeting after the change in the guard at the federal level. My faulty crystal ball says that if they're going to do something, it will probably be pretty much right away. And then we would know if we either have to follow the new federal legislation, which again we'll bring to you on February 9th, or we would bring an extension of this through the first quarter on February 9th. But we ultimately are in a wait and see pattern.
Any question? Okay. All those in favor of resolution R-31-21, say aye.
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 Motion carried. Next, I am looking for a motion to approve resolution R-32-21, amending the city's 2020 general fund and utility budget, COVID election funding and utility vehicle. This is a direct referral.
I move to approve.
Okay, Misty, what is this?
As you've seen in my COVID reports, there's been some references to these three items. So it is a direct referral because it's dealing with the 2020 budget again, and we need to get those things wrapped up. But I felt like you at least had an awareness that this was coming through those different reports. So there's three things that are included in here. The first is that Wisconsin Elections Commission CARES funding that we received that we had to spend on the election, which we did. It's a budget amendment to basically show that revenue and then show the authority to spend it on election costs, simply to clean up the budget. Then we also got the Center for Technology CTFL grant, which was again used for elections during COVID. We received that money and we spent it on elections as required. This is again just logistics or mechanics to get the budget cleaned up to show that aid. And then the third piece is back at the beginning of the public health emergency, council approved alternate financial policies. One of those policies allowed the mayor to administratively approve certain budget amendments with retroactive council approval after the fact, basically so that we could just kind of keep things moving. And there was one situation that was reported in the report where that happened. So now this is that retroactive approval from council for what the mayor had approved administratively under those policies.
So that one was a vehicle?
Yep, it was a utility vehicle that came in a little bit higher than expected, and they paid for it by a higher trade-in on the old vehicle. And then they also moved a couple of $1,000s between two different account numbers that they didn't expect to spend on maintenance side to help pay for the increase.
Oh, okay. So this one it doesn't have to do with COVID or anything. It's about that we emergency that we give power to the mayor to do certain. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So the purchase wasn't COVID related.
Yeah.
Was
I
COVID.
was confused. This was
Yeah, we did not buy a new vehicle just to deal with it. No, we didn't.
Okay, no, I get it now. It's because of okay.
And so in the packet, I included just that same COVID report we discussed at the beginning of the meeting, and I highlighted in green those 3 sections just to, if you wanted to see more detail about them, it's in there. And it will need a 2/3 vote, again, because we're increasing revenues and increasing expenses.
Okay, so there are 2 grants and the other one is a financial procedure that we need to approve. That's it.
Exactly.
Okay, so any question? No? So we are cleaning 2020 accounting. This is what we're doing.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor of resolution R-32-21 say aye. Nays, the motion carried. Next, we are I need a motion to approve resolution R-34-21. Is approving the tax incremental financing amendment and restated development agreement between Promega Corporation and the City of Fitchburg for TID number 9. This is another direct.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Okay, so this one is this.
Yep. So this is TID 9, which is the one at the corner of Lacey and Seminole. We have a development agreement in place with Promega for their new building back in that area. There were really 2 components with the TIF incentive that we provided. One piece that was for building the facility, and then the other piece was for public infrastructure costs, like the extension of Commerce Park and a reconstruction of a portion of Lacey that they were responsible for. Through the last few years, there's been a delay in the Lacey Road piece of it, which really helps the city from a bid timing perspective. In theory, Promega could have pushed it through, but the bids would have been higher for us. So instead, the city has agreed to delay it by a year in order to make sure that we get better bids and keep the costs down for the whole project. As a result of that delay, though, we need to split this TID incentive into 2 pieces. So the same 2 pieces are there that were originally agreed to, but this amendment formally splits it into 2 separate pieces rather than more informally.
And also we are changing the date too?
We are changing the date on the public improvements piece that interest kicks in. So the facility piece is essentially exactly the same as it was before. And the public improvements piece was separated out. It will be done as a separate TID incentive, but for the same total overall dollar amount that was originally agreed upon.
Okay, any question? No. When they are gonna start working on Lacey in 2022?
I think they're starting the engineering part in 2021, if I remember correctly. And then
I think all the engineer and design is in 21 and then 22. Okay, any other question? No? Okay, all those in favor of resolution R-34-21 say aye. And nays, the motion carried. Okay. So, so next, Misty, how do you want to do this? The next resolution?
Yes.
What is your recommendation?
So the next resolution does have a closed session on the agenda in case we needed it. I'd much rather we were prepared and not need it than the other way. My recommendation, though, would be considering the discussion to happen and the fact that there's a closed session on the council agenda as well to discuss. And it's good for everybody to have the same information. My recommendation would be to pass this on to council without a recommendation from finance, and then have the closed session and discussion at the council level.
So,
If everyone is okay?
yeah, do we need a motion?
Yep, so you
Yeah,
would make
can
a
I make a
motion, you would make a motion to send it over to council without a recommendation, if
Right,
that's what
I'll
you
move
want.
to refer to council without a finance recommendation.
Randy, can you
Do need a
second that?
on
We don't need a second.
We don't need a second, okay. Okay, all those in favor of moving this resolution to council without, what is it?
Without a recommendation. from
Without recommendation,
Aye.
say aye. Nays, the motion carried. So we are at the end of the meeting, so I don't know if there is any, for announcements, we have our next finance meeting on January 26th. Any other announcement that, no, Misty, you're done with all your announcements? Okay. Okay, so I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in
Aye.
favor say aye. Nay, the motion carried. Wow, 6:28.